Do y'all have those games that you're just so nostalgic for, but then when you go back and play it, you realize you have nothing but regret for even feeling nostalgic for it? This is one of those games for me. This week on TGRS here on Internet Nobodies, I'm Terrell, and this is SpongeBob Atlantis Squarespantis for the Nintendo Wii. This game is a tie-in to a TV special of the same title, and 8-year-old me couldn't wait for its debut. Not for the game, but for the TV special. Watching the lead up to it is surprisingly well cemented into my memory. Watching all the episodes in a big long marathon while watching the little timer in the corner count down, all while wanting to watch this big event of one of my favorite shows at the time. I mention this because I really don't remember a whole lot about the game. From what I do remember, it must have been like a Christmas present or something because I remember watching with my grandpa next to me. Nevertheless, this game ended up being one of the ones I would play often as a kid. A favorite of mine? Well, it's hard to tell. I played it a lot for the fact that it was just a SpongeBob game, not so much the fact that I really enjoyed it. I liked certain parts of it for sure, but I never really paid much attention to the games I was playing as a kid, at least not to the way I do now. So I didn't really have a list of favorites. All that's important is that I had fun at the game when I was a kid. And I did, so this gets a gold star from me on that fact. What about now? That's the point after all. What's the game like all these years later? A mess beyond belief. I mean, what do you expect? It's a 45-minute long TV special. There really wasn't a whole lot to work with here. The fact that they got more than a Flash game out of this is the thing that impresses me alone. But the best way for me to describe this game to you is that it's a collection of about 4-ish different level designs that make up the entirety of the game. We have the vehicle portions, the top-down room puzzles, which actually make up like a majority of the runtime of the game, the on-rail first-person parts, and last but certainly and most forgettably frustrating, the weird rhythm segments. As you select every level, SpongeBob pops up to the side to let you know what the game is about to straight up tell you, or what it just told you. Luckily, you don't have to listen to him all the way through and can just skip on through the explanation. However, let's start things off the way all best stories do, with an ice cream tank rampage. The first level of the game has you driving a tank through the facilities and grounds of the lost city of Atlantis, causing destruction and shooting targets to progress towards the palace. Plankton, who you're playing as in this section, believes he will be able to take over the palace with said tank. You know, the usual SpongeBob movie stuff. Oh, he also may think he can use it to get the Krabby Patty secret formula, because that's also what he does. Anyway, you will face off against ice cream tanks, cannons, and other various targets. It's very just get to the other side of the level and shoot open the door and fence with the targets. Very linear, very straightforward for these tank levels. Right away, I wish they would have sprung for nunchuck support with the control schemes for almost all the game modes in this game. I understand wanting to make the controls like very basic and easy based around one Wiimote, that way it's not hard for a child to grasp, but it feels like it's almost limited, especially in this tank section or any vehicle portion. It's just so limited and so stinted behind those basic generic tank controls when it could be more free, more open, a lot more just better in general, really. At the end of this level, just like the TV special, Plankton rolls up on SpongeBob and Patrick, where they're asked themselves the real questions: how did we get into this mess? Dun 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 dun! Flashback time.
Hi, Patrick!
How'd you do that, SpongeBob?
Oh, it's easy. I got this new high-tech bubble soap.
From here we follow the original storyline of the TV special through to the end, where SpongeBob and Patrick are blowing bubbles, having fun, and hanging out until they accidentally blow a bubble that's so large it carries them off to a cave where they just so happen to come across another full half of the amulet to Atlantis. I mean, you know what? Why am I questioning it now? I've already written this whole script. I may as well just keep going with it. Alright, let's go. This is how the thing actually happened. This is canon. This leading them to decide to go to the museum to find more smart people to tell them what this half of a circle is. The corresponding level that finally got us to this point is our first top-down room puzzle, and honestly, I rather enjoyed these as a kid and committed most of them to memory, and it was just a ton of fun to see how fast I could get through them based off of my memory. The level mainly has you switch between two characters, in this case you have SpongeBob and Patrick, and they use their special abilities to help you get through these levels. For this level we have SpongeBob with that spatula of his, and Pat Star with one hell of an arm. All of these puzzles in this area are quite simple. Even as a kid, I found them fun at first, but now I actually feel like they're greatly overused and pad the game's runtime completely. And almost like it's a horrendous amount I have to add. Like, they use these too often. After finding your way through the puzzle section, the game rewards you with taking you on a nice, relaxing trip throughout the Bikini Bottoms Museum in the first-person perspective. The goal here is to go through the on-rail shooter portion, and by shooter, they mean shooting photos. You are tasked with shooting only the finest of all of the exhibits, and by the finest, I mean literally all of the exhibits. But of course, there is no flash photography in this fine establishment. So while taking these pictures and not turning off the flash because that's for chumps, you need to throw Krabby Patties at the security guards before they yell at you too loud. I'm serious. Squidward, who just so happens to be at the museum to view some fine art, tells them what they've found, and with two pieces now being joined, the road to Atlantis is now finally shown, and naturally, instead of a road, it's a hot rod of a bus who shows up and acts as their round-trip flight to the Lost City. Let's go. So the whole gang just happens to be at the museum at the same time, you know, Sandy, Squidward, Mr. Krabs, and even Plankton, and everyone just hops on the bus and they're just ready to go. We're going to Atlantis. No, don't gotta feed Gary. Anyway, I'm almost done with the breakdown of what the minigames are that make up the game. I promise. I really do promise. No kids media would be complete without a song. So let me give you the most basic rhythm game in the world. The Sponge-tastic Rhythm Master. I remember that the bus ran off of the fuel of music to make it to the city, because of course it does. However, these rhythm section portions get used a few times, and honestly, it hurts to even think about. Really, after the bus one, they feel more out of place in this game than I do at a rave. They're just kind of there for what I can only assume to be a lack of better ideas or rushed development time. Thinking back on this as a kid, these parts would always give me like the most issues, and honestly, kind of makes me sad. They're easy enough for kids games mechanically, but the worst thing about it is their lack of memorable music. The music from the TV special, while not as catchy as the Jellyfish Jam, or Goofy Goober Rock from the SpongeBob movie.
Hey, settle down. Take it easy. What the scallop?
I'm a Goofy Goober!
The episode itself had its own songs, and they could have been used to help boost the more memorable impact of this TV special and carry the game to become a lot more memorable through this whole section, but they didn't. This is where I really start to see the pitfalls of this game. It's so rushed, it hurts. It can be seen from the basic inability to get the show's own songs licensed, specifically surrounding that last music section. But even more clearly, it's shown from the fact that the game does more exposition from SpongeBob than telling the story. The floating yellow atrocity just tells you everything that's happening instead of showing you with basic cutscenes that could have been made with the graphics of the game. Heck, they could have even taken a couple of clips from the show itself and put that in there to show you. But alas, this effort is nowhere in sight. And I think it is most clear that this game was completely rushed, because unlike any other SpongeBob games where they get a sound-alike from Mr. Krabs, this game just doesn't even have him talk. Ever! Not once. Like, he's an actual fucking mute. And it feels like they really wanted to just cut him out of the game entirely, but they were told by the executives over at Nickelodeon, no, you can't, you gotta leave the Mr. Krabs in there, he needs to be there, he's part of the story. But then they didn't even bother to help them get a voice actor, or something, or let him use something. Will annoy me to the ends of this earth, which I can see on the horizon. I guess I should make it clear up front that I never really liked the look of 3D SpongeBob games. I think it's weird to see characters that I've known for so long to be in their own 2D art style just be in 3D all of a sudden. It just feels wrong. But from the objective standpoint of this game, it doesn't look the worst. Put a question mark at the end of that. Compared to other games where the models aren't moving, it's fine. But it's the second that they start talking that they lose me. The faces feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It feels like they're being clicked on with a mouse and dragged around and stretched in a bad timing with the audio, instead of just having a character talk. The cartoony reactions of SpongeBob's world just don't work in a 3D space. They don't. They don't feel clean, but when they could show off the good sponge face animation in the exposition, they hardly move his lips. Probably the best looking animation comes out of the King of Atlantis himself, because there's little getting in the way of him changing throughout what we see. In the game, he talks very little, like barely at all, and it's just there. However, his model does lend itself better to a 3D adaptation over the Sponge Gang, in my opinion. Aside from that, the colors do seem just kind of washed out and bland, and it feels like there could have been a little bit more done with the overall graphic fidelity, but overall, I'm not gonna push it too hard. It's a game that came out several years ago now. The dialogue that isn't exposition is just kind of there. It's trying to be funny, but it's mostly just trying to remove the blandness of everything. The lines that play in tandem with specials are kind of the only ones that matter, but the rest of it is just kind of filler that it feels like they asked the voice actors to say offhand so they could have something to use in place of a filler line that would immediately just become repetitive. While some of these lines are very good, the little variation immediately turns them into repetitiveness as you'll hear them like more than 3 seconds later. This just had me wanting to mute the game and just have my own music on most of the time while I was playing. I would have roughly the same experience doing it that way. This game truly suffers from just being itself. It's a big cash grab that was clearly thought of last minute so it could ride the popularity of the TV special and then leave. It comes in, shows what's up, and leaves just as quick as it can. It didn't need to try, so it led to just another average, uninspired SpongeBob game. Don't get me wrong, there are a few things about this game I truly did like. Towards the end of the game, like, for example, you play as Sandy in a shootout with the Atlantis guards after you pop the oldest living bubble. And I will say the Metroid-like likeness of the game did not go unnoticed. I can see the reflection of Sandy slightly through her suit's dome, and I like the little detail as I go around with my Squidward-powered ping-pong ball launcher. That's what I wished for. I wished for something more akin to that detail, that level of, like, stuff, because that's what I'm, like, nostalgic for. I remember the Sandy level more than I remember the rest of the game. And that's what I wanted to see when I came back. I wanted to see that level of things, and hoping that I just kind of missed it. But what I did end up coming back to was nothing more than a few flakes of care given to a careless sandwich. Thank you guys for watching another video here on Internet Nobodies. I apologize for the delay. I've had a weird sleep schedule. It's neither here nor there. I'm working on it. Anyway, thanks to Kat, my friend, for helping me edit the script. Big thanks. See you guys later in the week for Fruity Fridays, and see you next week when Matt takes on whatever he's cooking up.